Script and article, Middle East on the Edge. Is the Israel-Iran conflict precursor to WW3? The Middle East is witnessing a historic and highly dangerous geopolitical shift. For decades, the conflict between Israel and Iran was fought in the shadows through a calculated, quote, proxy war. Today, that status quo has completely shattered, giving way to direct state-on-state military engagements. With the United States deeply entangled in this escalating crisis, the global political order faces one of its most critical junctures since the Cold War. This analysis breaks down the tripartite dynamics of the conflict, the economic fallout, the humanitarian toll, and the growing risk of a broader global alignment. 1. The tripartite dynamics? 3 agendas, 1 tinderbox. The current escalation is driven by the conflicting strategic imperatives of 3 primary actors: Israel, Iran, and the United States. United States. Secure regional hegemony. Protect energy corridors. Support Israel versus avoid full war. Israel. Iran. National survival. Axis of resistance. Neutralize proxies. Regional dominance. Preempt nuclear threat. Direct missile barrages. Israel's imperative survival and preemption. For Israel, the conflict is viewed through the lens of existential survival. Under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's military doctrine has shifted from containment to active neutralization. Israel's primary goals are to dismantle Iran's nuclear ambitions and permanently cripple the hostile network surrounding its borders. Iran's imperative, the axis of resistance. Iran aims to establish itself as the dominant cross-border power in the Muslim world while pushing back against Western influence. To achieve this, Tehran coordinates the Axis of Resistance, a network of heavily armed proxy groups including Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen. However, Tehran has recently demonstrated a willingness to bypass these proxies and launch direct ballistic missile and drone salvos from Iranian soil, signaling that it is prepared for a conventional war if pushed. The United States' imperative, the strategic tightrope. Washington remains Israel's ultimate security guarantor, but its regional interests extend to global economic stability and securing critical oil trade routes. The U.S. finds itself in a profound dilemma. It continuously attempts to publicly de-escalate the conflict while simultaneously supplying Israel with billions of dollars in advanced weaponry and deploying elite defensive assets, such as the THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Missile System, directly to the region. 2. Global economic risks, maritime choke points under fire. The economic fallout of this conflict extends far beyond the borders of the Middle East, striking at the heart of global supply chains and American consumer pockets. The Strait of Hormuz blockage. This narrow waterway is the world's most critical oil transit choke point, handling over 20% of the world's petroleum liquids. Any prolonged Iranian disruption or military blockade here instantly sends shockwaves through global energy markets. Red Sea and Suez Canal attacks. Persistent Houthi drone and anti-ship missile attacks in the Bab al-Mandab Strait have forced major maritime shipping conglomerates to abandon the Suez Canal route. The inflationary domino effect, rerouting commercial vessels around Africa's Cape of Good Hope, adds weeks to transit times and astronomical fuel costs. This logistics crisis spikes global shipping rates, leading to commodity inflation and higher prices for everyday goods in the West. 3. The humanitarian crisis. A heavy toll. The human cost of this multi-front war has sparked intense international scrutiny and domestic political debate within the United States. Continuous military operations in Gaza, heavy bombardments targeting Hezbollah leadership in Lebanon, and cross-border strikes into Syria have displaced millions of civilians. Entire metropolitan areas face catastrophic infrastructural damage. The sheer scale of civilian casualties and the resulting migration crises continue to pose severe questions regarding international humanitarian law and the limits of state defense. 4. Global polarization, the return of 2 blocs. The conflict is rapidly drawing lines across the globe, forcing a rigid polarization reminiscent of 20th century bloc politics. Camp 1, the Western Alliance. Comprising the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and NATO allies, this bloc provides unconditional diplomatic backing, intelligence sharing, and advanced military hardware to Israel. Camp 2, the revisionist coalition. Mirroring the Western Alliance, Russia, China, and North Korea have significantly tightened their strategic alignment with Iran. This manifests through advanced technology sharing, such as drone and missile telemetry, economic lifelines to bypass Western sanctions, and diplomatic shielding at the United Nations. The Global South's ambiguity. A vast swath of developing nations remains highly vulnerable to the economic shocks of the war, viewing the conflict as a failure of Western-led global governance. Critical conclusion. A world at a precipice. The confrontation between Israel, Iran, and the United States is no longer a localized border dispute. It is a violent recalibration of the global balance of power. The primary critique leveled by international observers points to the systemic paralysis of the United Nations Security Council. The frequent deployment of the U.S. veto power, combined with the unyielding geopolitical agendas of rival superpowers, has effectively neutralized diplomatic channels. When international diplomacy fails, raw military strength fills the vacuum. If current escalations are left unchecked, the conflict risks blowing past regional containment and triggering a direct confrontation between nuclear-armed global superpowers. True stability cannot be achieved through a cycle of preemptive strikes and retaliatory missile barrages.